Peat degradation and greenhouse gas emissions in Dutch peatland. Greenhouse gas emissions from peatlands are estimated to be around 4% of total Dutch emissions. These emissions result from the breakdown of the organic peat. In aerobic peat degradation, oxygen penetrates far into the soil due to a low groundwater level. Then, under the influence of oxygen, bacteria break the peat down into CO2. When the groundwater level is roughly 20 centimeters below ground level or higher, and when the soil is submerged, the chance of methane emissions increases. This process of anaerobic peat degradation occurs in the part of the soil that's underwater. There, other bacteria break down the peat in oxygen-free or anaerobic conditions, and methane can be released. Methane is a more powerful greenhouse gas than CO2. If the zone above the groundwater level is big enough, most of the methane there will be converted back into CO2. The greenhouse gas nitrous oxide can also form in the soil when nitrate is formed under aerobic conditions or when nitrate breaks down under oxygen-free conditions. Nitrous oxide is a nitrogen compound. The risk of nitrous oxide emissions increases as more mineral nitrogen, ammonium plus nitrate, is present in the soil. Nitrous oxide is also formed when little oxygen is present under wet conditions. There are two sources of nitrous oxide in peat soils: nitrous oxide produced by peat degradation and nitrous oxide produced by the application of nitrogen via fertilizers, manure and grazing. Higher groundwater levels mean a higher chance of nitrous oxide emissions. Nitrous oxide is also a more powerful greenhouse gas than CO2. International research has shown that total greenhouse gas emissions, converted into CO2, are lowest at a groundwater level of around -20 centimeters. The NOBV is researching the specific situation in Dutch peat soils. There are various factors influencing the processes that bring about peat degradation. The groundwater level determines how far oxygen is able to penetrate into the soil. At higher temperatures, bacteria are more active and more greenhouse gases are produced. A slightly higher pH value stimulates peat degradation, while a lower pH value inhibits it. The bacteria that break down peat under the influence of oxygen also require moisture. The quantity of moisture in the soil impacts the rate at which the peat breaks down. The presence of clay particles, the type of peat, fertilizer and other factors can also affect aerobic and anaerobic peat degradation. Groundwater level. The water table is rarely flat. It is often concave or convex. A concave groundwater table is caused by various processes such as evaporation and water consumption by plants. The water that is lost in this way only drains from the ditch to a limited extent, as peat soils are not very permeable. This means that the groundwater level can drop by dozens of centimeters, even just a few meters from the ditch. This effect depends on the soil's permeability and on the ditch distance. A low groundwater level in the peat means that oxygen penetrates deeper into the soil. This means that peat is broken down by bacteria, realizing CO2. During cold, wet periods, this process is reversed. More rain falls, there is less evaporation, and the grass doesn't grow. This creates a bulge in the groundwater level. Bacteria are more active at higher temperatures, and during warmer periods the groundwater table is often concave. These two effects reinforce each other, and greenhouse gas emissions increase. Measures and their effects. Ditch water level. Raising the water level in ditches causes the groundwater level to rise. This reduces peat degradation. But the level increases slowly because the water has to penetrate the land via pores. and although the water table is higher, it remains concave. Passive water infiltration. Infiltration pipes are drainage pipes that are located below ditch level and run from the ditch into the ground. As a result, the groundwater table is flatter. The extent of this effect depends on the permeability of the soil, the drain distance, and the ditch water level. When the ditch water level is low, oxygen is still able to penetrate far into the soil. A combination of increasing the ditch water level and passive water infiltration is more effective. Active water infiltration. Active water infiltration makes the water table even flatter. This method is independent of the ditch water level. Active water infiltration uses the water level in wells. When the water level in the wells is high, the groundwater level is high. When it's low, the groundwater level is low. The pressure makes the water flow through the pores in the soil more quickly, and the groundwater level can be raised more quickly. In colder periods, there is a precipitation surplus. The slow outflow from the ground creates a bulge in the water table. Drainage enables the water to run off more evenly, making the water table less convex. Wet crops. Wet crops are also being investigated as a potential measure. Cattail is grown on land that's underwater. Cattail cultivation can release methane. This seems to partly depend on the amount of fertilizer used. More fertilizer results in higher production, but can also result in higher methane emissions. Cranberry is a food crop that can grow with limited drainage, under acidic conditions, and with virtually no fertilizer. Miscanthus, also known as elephant grass, is a fiber crop like bulrush, with limited drainage and little fertilizer needed. The hope is that these crops will release little methane or CO2. Peat moss, with water up to ground level, may be able to capture net CO2. All of these crops require further research. Clay in peat. The soil measure clay in peat is a relatively new measure to combat soil subsidence and greenhouse gas emissions. Clay particles are sprayed or scattered over the soil. Precipitation and soil life cause the particles to penetrate the peat. It changes the properties of the peat, and there is less peat oxidation. Exactly how this works and how effective it is being investigated with lab and field trials with different types of clay and peat.